Okay, so this is the consumables I wanted to show. For this, we are doing millions, of course. In total, STRATEC employs over 1,400 people, and the interesting thing is that more than half of them are engineers. So we are really an engineering company, although we are also manufacturing. Sales is constantly growing. You see an little decline after the Corona peak, but over the years we are constantly growing. So STRATEC has various locations. We are headquartered in Germany, in Birkenfeld, which is close to Stuttgart. Some of car fans know Stuttgart because Porsche comes from Stuttgart or Mercedes comes from Stuttgart. Birkenfeld is very close. Birkenfeld is where we develop and manufacture the large instruments. We consumables are located in Austria, close to Salzburg. Since 1.5 years, we have a new location in the United States, in New York, Long Island. We acquired STRATEC Plastics. But we have subsidiaries in Hungary as well and in Romania. And this is what we do. On the STRATEC side, we develop the software, we develop the hardware, the analyzer systems, and also the consumables. Our partner or customer brings the market access, but also the reagents or the assays. And this is, of course, very, very important. And we really try to not combine this. We are not going into the assay development field because we really don't want to be a competitor to our customers. And some examples of instruments and consumables, what we are doing. Very important for STRATEC is the liaison. For diazorin, what we are doing. Famous in the single molecule detection is the Simoa instrument for quanterics, for Alzheimer's disease detection. We are doing the disk for the instrument, and our headquarter is doing the instrument. We have very important the Panther Fusion for Hologic, which was built, or the most important PCR instrument during Corona pandemic in the US. And some consumables are here down there. The Rhapsody cartridge for BD we are manufacturing. Actually, there is now a new generation available as well with 8 channels. And we're also doing, and this is one of our legacy products, the multi-target slides for Shimadzu. This was very interesting in the beginning when we started with Sony DATC Biosciences. We really were asking ourselves, where can we substitute different materials with plastics, right? And this is one of the products we then co-developed with our customer. We really wanted to substitute stainless steel with plastic, and we did it by molding, injection molding the plastic target, but then coating with a stainless steel coating on top of it, so the customer don't see any difference in the performance. Of course, STRATEC has all the necessary certifications and registrations. And here, this is STRATEC Plastics in Long Island. They are doing mostly large plastic parts, like no microstructures or nanostructures, but they are serving Truvian. For instance, maybe this is a company more or less known in the point of care market. They are a very good molding company with the molding facilities on Long Island and a mold maker in New Jersey. Now we are coming to our core technologies. And let me say, mastering is the beginning of everything, of course. We start with this lithographic step. We started already with this for CD manufacturing. For CD manufacturing, you usually do very, very, very small structures. We developed over the last 20 years our process in the direction of larger structures. So what we can do is, it says here 200 nanometer to 200 micrometers, but we are constantly further developing our processes. We are also doing smaller structures than 200 nanometers. Aspect ratios are up to 1 to 12, but of course always depending on the material which you're using later on, and always depending on the density of the structures and so forth. I think what makes our process very specific is that not only we can adjust the draft angle, but we can also control the draft angle, and this helps for later injection molding tremendously. As said, we developed the process further and further, I would say kind of every day. We of course can do different layer mastering, which is important for most of the applications as well. And please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. If I'm too fast or too slow, or interrupt me, please. Molding. For molding, we have, again, different technologies. We are coming from our history from the CD, DVD, and Blu-ray manufacturing. So we love round discs. This is still the best design to mold, and we always start, when we start with a new project, we try to start with a molded disc, as you have shown me today as well, because this is just the perfect design for a perfect mold flow, right? Yeah. So that's why we love it. And for prototyping, you can mill your structures, your areas as you do it, of course. But if we go for mass manufacturing, we then, of course, build our dedicated molds, and we stop going from a disc. We have standard injection molding, we have variothermal molding, we have injection compression molding. We can combine all this, of course. I think what makes us interesting, again, is that we have a very large database of materials. We dedicated test materials over the entire process chain. So we test the injection molding, but also then the following steps like bonding, coating, and so forth. And we do this with certain materials, and then have specific tests around it in order to characterize the material. Bonding is, again, I would say maybe something we are specialized in. We most of the time do solvent activated thermal bonding, but of course we do PSA bonding, we do UV gluing. When we combine a structured film with a structured molded part, we usually use a glue in order to combine it. Because the structured film comes on a PET film, coated PET film, and usually we work then with polycarbonate or CUP materials, which cannot be bonded via solvent bonding or thermal bonding, because it's not the same material. So for mass manufacturing, again, the solvent activated thermal bonding is our most is the technology we are using the most. We have highly automated this technique, so we really try not to touch any surfaces, even not with gloves. We really try to decrease manual handling as much as possible. For content loading, We have, of course, we can dispense certain materials, DNA, proteins, and so forth on different surfaces. Sometimes the plastic surface needs to get a vacuum coating, like a glass coating or metallic coating or whatever is needed by the application. We can do vacuum coatings of metals, reflective layers, but also of glass. We can apply different techniques in order to control the resulting higher background fluorescence of the plastic material. We can apply E-beam coating, but also sputter coating if the background fluorescence is not of that importance. Of course, we do plasma processing, and we can do a lot. Again, we have the heritage from the Sony times, and the disc always comes with a reflective coating as well on top of it, right? And for a Blu-ray disc, you have different layers and different materials coated on top. So that's what we do since 20 years, right? And we do, as you can see here a little bit, we can do electrode printing as well. So we have quite a variance of techniques available. Very, very, very important is what you can see here, our automation. Again, this is an Sony heritage, as I call it. We build our machines by ourselves. We do the construction, then we work together with partners. But our machines, our manufacturing is highly automated. We really try to not get in touch with the chips as good as possible. So we have an automation team doing the construction and the conception, and then we have partners very close by who do the actual hardware then around it. And here comes first view of reel-to-reel replication. I have more slides on this later on. For reel-to-reel, we work together with a partner, with an industrial partner. I have worked with this company, so I still have some access, which is not so easy to get because they are working in the high security business for developing and manufacturing optical security stripes for banknotes and governmental documents. So the access to their technologies is usually very limited. Since I have worked for them for a couple of years, I know those techniques, so I still have kind of access to them, which is helpful if you collaborate and co-develop products together. One word to how we operate. Usually we really work together with a partner or a customer, as I mentioned before. We start with an initial phase to really try to find the proof of principle and find a technical and economical feasibility of the product together with the customer. But this can take years, right? So sometimes if you really have to first develop the beginning of the processes, it can take years. So for instance, one of the projects we did together with Roche really took us 10 years from the beginning to the launch of the project. In order to be able to launch a project, you have to undergo, at least for a diagnostic product, you have to undergo certain phases because it's in a regulated market. You have to have a design freeze in the design qualification phase. Then you can go to the prototyping phase, do an IQ, and then you can go to OQ, PQ, and your pilot manufacturing before you can start with mass manufacturing. And this is not only for the product, but also for the processes, of course, and the equipment. So it's a highly regulated market we are moving in. And this sometimes is contradictory to a innovative market, right? So you have a lot of rules you have to follow during your development and manufacturing, but also you need to keep your brain open and clear for new things. So sometimes this can be difficult, but it's necessary, of course. Saying this, I'm coming to our unique cooperation we have with the Kurz Group. The Kurz Group is not very well known, but everybody at least in Europe knows the euro and therefore knows the silver stripe on top of it and therefore has part of their products in his hands, kind of every day. Since I have worked for them and worked for STRATEC and now working for STRATEC again, I could leverage the partnership between those two companies very well. Kurz really is first of all, it's not a public company, which makes it interesting. It's in the ownership of the Kurz family since the sixth generation. They have been founded by how is it called? By gold stamping, I think it's called, making very, very thin gold.
E-beam evaporation.
It's before e-beam evaporation, you know. In the old churches, you have those gold leaves, very thin gold leaves, and you
Columns.
Yeah, but you make them you make them by hammering on gold, hammering again and again and again, and then you finally end up with very, very thin, nanometric thin gold leaves. That's yes, right.
Gold leaf, right?
Gold leaf.
Gold leaf.
Yeah, right. That's what they started with. And then they really invented the gold evaporation in the 1920s. That's one of their, of course, what they are proud about. But they are an engineering company. They're serving completely different industries. So if we have a project together, STRATEC has the contact to the customer. And we, of course, have the ISO certifications we need for diagnostic. When I started working for them, I really was surprised. They really call the processes the same. And I learned because they build it up according to a CD white book they had in the beginning of the 80s. So they call mastering like we do in Sony DDC, right? Or now STRATEC. They have one process which is a little bit different than what we do. This is the step and repeat process because, of course, if you go reel to reel, it only makes sense if you go really on large scale. Their sleeves, their stamper, as we would call it for injection molding, are close to 1 meter long and width. And it only makes sense if you have more of your masters on one of your sleeves, right? So that's a process they needed to invent, of course. Yeah, this is really high throughput. Yeah. 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 And if you see the machines running for the banknote manufacturing for the hundreds, and you see them running with a couple of meters per minute, right? And then see many of those stripes, you think you could use one of them. Just a meter would be enough, right? So, but obviously this is not working. After replication, after the manufacturing of the structures into the film, they can apply different coatings, wet coatings, of course, as you can dream about. It's way easier to print reagents on a large scale than on smaller scales. But of course, vacuum coating like glass coating or metal coating is possible as well. And structured, full area coating, but structured coating, of course. Yeah, and then the final step, if it goes to a optical security element, is also bonding and converting. Usually you need to put your silver stripe on your desired surface. In the case of our collaboration, we need to put the structured foil on top of our structured fluidic chip. But usually we do this with glue. So here come some pictures. This is what I called a sleeve or a shim cylinder. You really start with your master, with your single master, and then you step and repeat in a polymer, of course, and then you go to nickel. This is the process. If you go to nickel, of course, you have to have a very, very good understanding of your galvanic baths, because the nickel shim over this width and length needs to be very, very homogeneous in thickness over the entire area, because if not, your application result would be different all over. This is an example of an embossing machine. Kurz is very similar to a Sony DADC or a STRATEC now. They are building their own machines. So this is not a standard process, what you have here. You cannot buy such machines. They are just building them by themselves. Surface treatment or surface coatings on the other side are standard machines you can buy, because this is what the entire packaging, food packaging industry needs. They need coated films. Then, of course, the Lackiermaschinen, as we say in German, the lacquer coating is different techniques. It can be gravure printing, flexo printing, screen printing, and so forth. Everything is doable. They have a process invented which is called partial metallization. For this, they actually go with the aluminum coated film, for instance, through a bath, through a basic bath, to wash specific areas free of the aluminum. This can be done with gold as well.
And what is meant by partial metallization?
So I do not have my bag with me where I have a euro, but on the euro, on the silver stripe, you see very, very thin aluminum stripes. Mm-hmm. And this is what they mean with partial metallization. You do not have a full area metallization. You only have the metallization where you want it. So for instance, if you want to have your electrodes, you use a mask or you use this partial metallization process. Mm.
So it actually eliminates the need for a mask.
Yeah.
Is it a direct write process?
No. It's more like you, for instance, you can coat an protective layer on the areas where you want to have your...
Okay. Like lift off.
Yeah, it's kind of a lift
off. It's a lift off.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah, then silk screen printing I mentioned already. Very important is finally the converting step. You cannot underestimate the converting step, because first of all, it needs to be very, very accurate and precise, but also you really need to get your large rolls of material sliced into smaller handable pieces, right? So usually what we do is slice into smaller rolls and then try to, again, optimize the lamination of your label onto your chip. Yeah, this is explained here as well. What you can see in this picture here is a typical banknote security stripe. This is how they really got cut and then rolled on very narrow large rolls and then treated by the banknote manufacturer.
Is the image on the left, is it a uniform film or is it just nanotouch?
This one here, this is a uniform film with structures, with
Nanostructures.
structures. Yeah. Some examples of diffractive structures you would use for banknote security elements. This really are nanostructures, or like those here. Some SEM pictures of them. Of course, this is all for diffractive, you know, you want to see them. You know, that's the purpose of those structures. Here we did together a project where we had to replicate 4-micron pillars, as you can see here. The interesting question was they needed to be very, very precise, 4-micron in height. And we had to control it during manufacturing, but of course also after manufacturing, because they got treated with reagents, we coated with reagents, and the pillars had to still be alive after coating, after gravure printing. And what we did, we invented an inline inspection system where we really could measure those 4-micron plus minus 2.5%, which is 100 nanometer in this case. And over the width and the length of the roll of 5,000 meters, because if you go reel to reel, you immediately manufacture a lot of material. We could achieve and be in this specification.
When you start, like, does it adjust? I imagine those rolls, they will have some, you know, some maybe the expansion because of the temperature. So then that's pretty impressive, 100 nanometers.
Yeah.
Difference, right? How do you control that kind of, like, pure, not the process necessarily, but the machine,
The elongation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know. This is a very good question because this limits the reel-to-reel work to a certain material. You only really can use PT as a substrate. You know, if we could use COP or a COC film, this would be way easier. But can you imagine to have a COP film on such large machines as you can see here? You know, those machines are so large that you have to go as a human being, you have to go inside the machine in order to start the process, right? But this, of course, comes with very, very high forces, and COC or COP film is super brittle. This makes them so good with their optical properties, but it makes them really difficult to handle. So what the company Kurz is doing, they're using only PT film as a substrate, but then they do, on top of it, they do coatings in which they can then do the structuring. And for the banknote security elements, for instance, they can get rid, before they print, they do the molding lacquers on top of it. They do a release layer. They coat with the PET with a release layer, and then they can get rid of the PET, right? So that's one of their, this is not a secret, I can talk about it, but this is how you usually would go with.
Is just the transfer.
It's, you can use it just as a transfer material, right? You can stick with the PT, right? When we did this project with the 4-micron pillars, we left, we still work with the PT because PT is a wonderful material, right? You cannot destroy it, you cannot break it.
if you want to use it, then you can use it, or you can use it as a transfer, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
So there are different methodologies how to get your structures in the film. It's thermal replication. Then you need high temperatures. But the structures are nice. They are very nice if you want to have nano channels or nanostructures or diffractive structures. If you want to have pillars, this is not working anymore. In this case, you need UV replication. The beauty of the UV replication is that those pillars are, you can hammer off them and they still will be alive. They are mechanically very, very, very stable. That's amazing. But UV replication comes with a UV lacquer, of course, and this comes with a certain autofluorescence. So everything has advantages and disadvantages. Yeah, some more pictures of structures we did reel to reel. This is an example of a lacquer machine at Kurz. They build their own machines, so you can lacquer different reagents or lacquers one after the other in registration or a full area, whatever you want, you can do on this machine. But you see, those machines are huge, and you again need huge forces in order to move the PT from one part of the machine to the next part of the machine. And if you then need to put your colors or reagents in registration to each other, and you want to be precise, then you need, of course, again, more forces. So PET again is the material of choice. In this case, we printed, gravure printed acridine orange on top of those structures. And what you can see, even after gravure printing, the pillars have been alive and within the height specification. Here you see examples of converted films. So you see very, very small labels. The black marks here are for further processing as fiducials for automated processing of the labels. And now I would come to how I could imagine maybe to work together with you and what we could do together, right? So if I look at your design, yes, depending on, yeah. If I look at your design, of course, in a first guess, I would love to use PET because PET is so easy to handle. But I heard from you that you wanted to have solvent bonding, ideally, so we cannot use PET. We need to use COP film. For the coating, I think this is no problem. The issue, the question is, can we still do reel-to-reel processes with a COP film? We would try with gold coating, PVD gold coatings, and then do exactly what I explained before. Apply a flexoprinting with an edge resist and have then the electrodes. We really need to test if this would be possible with this film. We would try it with a lab scale machine where the forces are not too high, where we think this might be still possible reel to reel. If not, this could be a process we can build an automation around and deal with it in a batch process as well. Yeah, we would start with a pre-test with materials, if reel-to-reel is possible or not. And then go to next steps. Of course, bonding of those channels is very, very interesting. I think I would now come to the part where I would stop.